Hi guys, welcome back to MSW with Celine. I have officially just finished my first year of the MSW program. So what I'm going to be talking about in today's video is my generalist internship experience and some things that I wish that I would have known before starting my internship. So if you're interested, keep watching. So first I want to talk about how my interview went that put me on my placement for my generalist internship. Something that's so sweet about the master's program is that you actually meet with a faculty member and they connect you to internships. So that sort of takes the pressure off of you. You don't have to go out and apply and bring your resume. They sort of hook you up with places based on the conversation that you guys have at your internship or that you're at your interview. So since I already live in the university town college area, I was able to go to my interview in person and it went really well, to the point where I even left with happy tears because I was just so excited. And basically what the faculty member would ask me during my interview was, common interest. They actually had us write a whole paper of our interests so that they're able to read our papers and sort of be prepared before meeting with us. So I had told the faculty member that I was interested in working with children and families and then at-risk populations. And so we were sort of talking, and I shared my background, which I mentioned in my first video about choosing my journey to social work. I had taken a year off from school and I did some random jobs, but I also did substitute teaching. And so I told this faculty member, schools don't really seem that appealing to me because I've had such a weird experience substituting. I've always heard negative things from the faculty and staff at the schools that I was substituting at, and I just wasn't so excited about that. But the faculty member from my university, he kept pleading, based on all of the experience that you have, I haven't seen anyone with this experience, and I think that you would really excel in another school setting. And so at first, I really wasn't interested, and I expressed that to him and my concerns, but he ended up convincing me that it would be a really good idea to further my experience with children and families because that's ultimately what my passion is. And before you know it, I left saying, okay, I will go ahead and interview with this agency. So I guess that what I would suggest for you guys going into your generalist internships, when you go for that interview, you might leave that interview with a completely different idea that you had coming into it. So just be open to new ideas. The faculty that interviews you really is experienced and has the best interest for you. So just have an open mind when you go in. Now, after this interview with my faculty member from the university, from the social work program, I went and interviewed at the agency. And like I mentioned, it was at a school. So I went in, it was a little bit intimidating, especially since I didn't have any experience with social work before. And it was a room of 5 people, and I sat at the head of the table, and they were just asking me questions. Some of them were situational questions, some of them were about my resume, but it was really, I got a really good vibe, and I always go based off of vibes. So I really enjoyed the people that I interviewed for, and I ended up landing that internship, and I felt really awesome about it because it was a pretty competitive agency, and that means that I would be one of the first generalist students that they accept at this agency. So I was really looking forward to how my experience would be with them. Something unique about this placement was that I would receive my weekly supervision from a staff member or faculty member from my university. So this was different from other students in my program because their agencies had a supervisor on site, but mine had to come, from UCF every week that we had planned. And at first I was a little bit skeptical about that because it would be nice to have a supervisor, seeing you day to day, but it actually ended up being a really, really valuable supervision because I would be able to express my concerns or difficulties that I'm experiencing, and my supervisor would give me a perspective and an outlook that was totally neutral because she didn't have any ties to my agency, and she really just wanted what was best for my learning and everything that would facilitate my learning at the agency. Since I was the first ever generalist student, like I mentioned before, the sort of role that I had was very open and not so concrete. So that sort of gave me some wiggle room to sort of step up to the plate and create my own role. And with that, I was able to sort of impact the school, which I'm really proud of, in multiple ways. I created a food pantry at the school, and I created a parent nutrition committee. I facilitated 2 student, clubs, if you would say. So I facilitated a student government sort of club, and then I facilitated and started a LGBTQ plus club. So that was really amazing. I was able to work with parents and students, which was a really valuable thing for me to sort of build rapport on. And I was able to work with different faculty members from the school, because everything that I worked on, had to go through so many different systems of the school. So it was overall super helpful in my learning, really impactful, and I had a really, really good experience. All right, now I want to get into some things that I wish that I would have known before my generalist internship. So the first thing is utilize the learning contract. My program made every single student sit down with their task supervisor at their agency and sit down and sort of answer out every single competency. And so with that, I was able to establish goals that I would want to reach by the end of the semester and by the end of the year. The fact that we established these sort of expectations at the very beginning of the semester was really helpful, because for my experience, I wasn't really seeing as many clients as I would have wanted to. And on my contract, it specifically says have lots of experience with so-and-so students, so-and-so parents. And so I was able to sort of keep my supervisor accountable and making sure that I was able to meet that competency by the end of the semester and by the end of the year. Another valuable learning opportunity for me was to approach situations on my internship from a social work perspective. And that really didn't come to mind until I had completed my entire internship. And that's because my program was really great about debriefing with me about my experience, and I came to realize that you have to approach every single situation from a social work perspective. And what I mean by that is making sure that you are being flexible, making sure that you're being professional, making sure that you have the best interest of the client. And so I came across this a few times on my internship, and until I realized that I needed to approach things from a social work perspective, I was a little bit frustrated, because I'm sort of like a go-getter. Everything has to be done like go, 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 go. But on my agency, there were so many systems that I would have to go through in order to complete tasks sometimes, that I was getting a little frustrated about the slow process. But I basically considered everything from a social work perspective, and I would, advocate for clients and sort of go over all these roadblocks with the clients in mind. At the end of the day, I learned that the client's needs come first. Anything that I could do to facilitate meeting their needs is what I'm going to try to do, but also maintaining professionalism. There were times where I would come across an ethical dilemma from anyone from my agency that would make me really uncomfortable, but the thing that you have to remember is to maintain professionalism, because you're representing your university. And so how I would approach everything would just be to keep my university standards and expectations in mind, and maintain professionalism, because at the end of the day, you're going to go home after that weird ethical dilemma with someone, but then you have to go back the next day. So just maintain professionalism. It's really important to make sure you have good standing with your agency, and it'll have a huge impact on how well you do for the rest of the year. Another thing I recommend is, if you ever have any sort of downtime, do not be afraid to ask your supervisor to shadow other people at the agency. This would happen to me sometimes because my task supervisor would be pulled in lots of different directions throughout the day, whether it be meetings or a teacher pulling her aside. So I would at first sort of take advantage of this and do like sneak some schoolwork in, but at the end of the day, that doesn't help my learning. It hurts my learning. So what I started doing was I started asking if I could start shadowing the school counselor, the safety coordinator, and this was really helpful because I was able to see more clients. I don't know if you guys know this, but school counselors get students walking by their office all day, every day. So that was really helpful for me to sort of get more client interaction, sort of show my face around the agency some more so that people are familiar with me, and it made me, use my time more effectively. My next piece of advice for incoming generalist students is to try to utilize group and individual supervision. If you have the opportunity to do both, it's going to be really helpful because I was able to meet with the clinical year students and sort of hear that student's experience and be able to share mine as well. We were able to debrief on difficulties that we were experiencing, and I just thought it was way better than just me meeting with the supervisor, because rather than just having my issues or my difficulties throughout the agency being shared, I was able to hear from the clinical student, and I just thought it was better. I personally enjoy working in group settings anyways, so I just thought that facilitated my learning even more. So if you do have that option, I would definitely utilize it, and if you don't, I would suggest bringing it up to your supervisor if there are other students from your university at the agency, and suggest, hey, once a month, would it be okay if we did a group supervision? And I don't think that the supervisor would have any issue with this, so don't be afraid to ask that. My final piece of advice is to don't be afraid to offer suggestions and take on projects, because like I mentioned before, I was the first ever generalist student, and so that sort of left my role to be sort of open to any suggestions. And luckily for me, my agency was really receptive to me offering suggestions. And so basically for me, based on everything that I learned from my courses and gaining more experience as I went on in the agency, I was able to sort of see some things that could be improved, and to better advocate for my clients, I went and presented these ideas to my supervisor. And like I mentioned before, I was able to create this huge food pantry, work on a team of people at my agency to do a clothing closet, hygiene closet, create clubs. So don't be afraid. You're there to help the agency the best you can. Just make sure that when you're presenting ideas, to be very professional, and I think that will really make or break your experience there. Just making sure that you are professional when you're bringing ideas there, and who knows, you'll probably leave a legacy at the end of it, which I think will be really sweet. Alrighty, that is the end of today's video. I really hope that sharing my experience and giving advice for all of you incoming generalist interns is going to be really helpful to making your year successful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye!